You've been taught a lie that sounds holy: be kind, be patient, be agreeable, be the man who never raises his voice, never demands, never disappoints, the man who offers without asking, who apologizes for taking up space, who calls his own hunger immaturity and his own anger toxicity. And then you watch the world reward the opposite. You watch louder men take the seat you earned. You watch colder men keep the respect you begged for. You watch people lean on you like furniture, then walk past you like you're invisible. And the worst part isn't the betrayal, it's the confusion, because you did everything right. You gave what you had, you tried to be good, and still you're treated like your generosity is a resource to be extracted, not a virtue to be honored. So you start making excuses. You tell yourself you're just surrounded by the wrong people. You tell yourself your time will come. You tell yourself the world is broken, not your strategy. Machiavelli would look at your life and say something colder. You have mistaken softness for safety. In every human room, there is an economy. Respect is currency, attention is territory, boundaries are borders, and the man who refuses to defend his borders will be occupied. So here is the question that will decide whether you remain a nice guy or become a man with gravity. What if your kindness isn't your strength, but your camouflage for fear? Let's begin. The first mistake the nice man makes is thinking he's playing a moral game. He walks into life like it's a church. Reward goes to the pure, punishment to the cruel, and if you suffer long enough, the world will eventually notice and correct the ledger. But human systems don't run on fairness. They run on incentives. And when you offer unlimited access to your time, attention, and labor, you don't inspire gratitude. You set a price: zero. Machiavelli understood what nice men refuse to. People don't value what you give. They value what it costs them to lose you. That is the law beneath every friendship, every romance, every workplace. Not because people are evil, but because perception is lazy. The mind measures importance by consequence. If your absence changes nothing, you are treated like nothing. This is why the good guy becomes the invisible guy. He answers every call. He adjusts to every mood. He forgives every insult. He smiles through disrespect because he believes endurance is virtue. But endurance without enforcement is not virtue. It is permission. The predator doesn't need to hate you. He just needs to learn you won't bite. So the first strategic shift is brutal, and it will feel wrong because you've been trained to worship approval. You must become expensive, not in money, in access. Your attention becomes something people earn, not something they receive. Your yes becomes rare enough to mean something. Your time becomes a territory with guards, not a public park. You stop over-explaining, stop negotiating your boundaries like they're suggestions, stop rushing to prove you're harmless. Harmlessness is not a compliment in a competitive world. It is a label that invites occupation. Think of any court in history. The man who smiled at every insult was not praised as noble. He was identified as weak. And once weakness is confirmed, it becomes a target, not always consciously, not always maliciously, but inevitably. The nice man asks, "How do I get them to appreciate me?" Machiavelli would answer, "Why have you made appreciation optional? Create consequence, create scarcity, create a clear border. This behavior gets access. This behavior loses it. No drama, no speeches, no moral courtroom, just removal. Because the fastest way to change a social reality is not to complain about it, it's to enforce it. And here is the final knife turn. Boundaries don't make you less kind. They make your kindness real. A gift given under fear of rejection isn't generosity, it's a bribe. And bribes attract the exact people who will drain you with a smile. If you want respect, stop begging for it with endless giving. Start pricing yourself like a man whose absence matters. Nice men talk too much, not because they love words, but because they fear misunderstanding. They fear being seen as unfair, cold, arrogant, or not good. So when tension appears, they start explaining. They narrate their intentions. They justify their choices. They build a little courtroom in the air and try to win the verdict of everyone watching. Machiavelli would call this what it is: surrendering the frame. Because the moment you explain yourself to someone who is testing you, you've already accepted their authority to judge you. You've placed them above you, handing them the gavel, and now your dignity depends on whether they approve of your reasoning. That is not communication. That is submission with extra steps. Powerful people understand a simple truth. Explanations don't create respect. They create openings. Every sentence you add becomes a handle someone can grab. Every justification becomes a weakness someone can challenge. And the more you talk, the more you advertise a hidden confession. I need you to be okay with this. This is why manipulators love nice guys, because nice guys provide unlimited material. They will clarify, soothe, overcompensate, apologize, and negotiate their own boundaries until the boundary dissolves. The manipulator doesn't even have to fight. He just has to wait. Strategic silence is not being rude. It is refusing to be audited by people who haven't earned that right. When you say no, do not write an essay. When you set a boundary, do not hold a seminar. When someone tries to drag you into their emotional theater, do not audition for the role of villain they've written for you. You say fewer words, and you say them clean. No, that doesn't work for me. I'm not available. I've decided. Then you stop. And here's what happens in that pause. The other person meets the wall. They can't slip past your reasoning because you didn't build them a door. They can't debate your logic because you didn't present a thesis. All they can do is react to your decision. This is where most nice men panic. They interpret discomfort as danger. If the other person frowns, they rush to repair. If the other person accuses, they scramble to prove innocence. If the other person withdraws, they chase. And every time they chase, they teach the same lesson. Pressure works on me. Machiavelli's advice is colder. Let them be upset, not because you enjoy it, because their emotions are not your leash. When you stay calm while someone is displeased, you signal internal sovereignty. You are saying, without drama, my choices are not hostage to your mood. That single signal rearranges the social hierarchy. People may not like it at first, but they will register it. Silence also does something else. It forces the room to project. In the absence of your constant self-defense, people start assigning you traits: confidence, authority, self-control, mystery. Not because you performed them, but because you stopped trying to disprove the opposite. The nice man tries to manage perception by explaining. The strategist manages perception by limiting access. So the rule is simple. Speak to inform, not to plead. If someone deserves clarity, give it once, briefly. If someone is testing you, give them nothing but the boundary, because the man who can tolerate being misunderstood is the man who cannot be controlled. Nice men confuse being liked with being safe. They collect smiles like armor. They chase warmth, approval, inclusion. They avoid conflict the way a peasant avoids the king's temper, by shrinking, by yielding, by hoping invisibility will be mistaken for virtue. But the world does not protect what it merely enjoys. It protects what it needs, what it fears to lose, what it cannot replace. Machiavelli would tell you that affection is unstable. It rises and falls with moods, convenience, gossip, hunger, and boredom. Respect is different. Respect has weight. Respect survives disappointment. Respect remains when the room changes temperature, and respect is built on a foundation the nice man avoids: the willingness to be disliked. Here is the ugly mechanism underneath most social environments. People test the boundaries of anyone who seems dependent on approval. They might do it subtly: a late reply, a sarcastic jab, a small request that costs you more than it costs them, a little disrespect wrapped in humor so you'll swallow it without complaint. They are not always trying to hurt you. They are trying to locate you, to find your rank. If you laugh it off, comply, and keep smiling, you have answered their question. I can be moved. And once you can be moved, you will be moved. The nice man then does something fatal. He becomes resentful in private and compliant in public. He keeps giving, but now each gift is poisoned with silent rage. He calls himself too nice. But what he really means is, I keep betraying myself and hoping you'll reward me for it. Machiavelli would have no patience for this. He would say, stop aiming to be liked, aim to be clear. Clarity is what creates respect. Clarity is a blade. It separates what you accept from what you don't. It turns vague social fog into defined borders, and borders create order. If someone crosses your line, you respond immediately and proportionally, not with a lecture, not with an emotional explosion, with a simple consequence. You don't answer the call. You decline the invitation. You end the conversation. You leave. You don't punish them with theatrics. You remove your access as if it is a privilege, not a human right. That is what makes the consequence powerful. It is calm. Cruelty is noisy. Authority is quiet. And here's the twist that will offend your old self. When you become willing to be disliked, you become easier to like, because your kindness is no longer desperate, it's chosen. People can feel the difference between a man who is kind because he's afraid and a man who is kind because he's in control. The first feels sticky, the second feels safe. One is a petition, the other is a gift. So you stop performing goodness like a job interview. You stop trying to win everyone. You let some people walk away because their departure is a form of purification. The room gets cleaner when you stop begging the wrong people to stay. Respect comes from a simple equation. I will treat you well, and I will not tolerate disrespect. That combination is rare. That combination is power. Nice men are addicted to reaction. A text arrives and they answer instantly. A tone shifts and they scramble to fix it. A silence appears and they fill it. They live as if every pause is a threat and every moment of tension is an emergency. This is not sensitivity. It is loss of command. Machiavelli understood time as a weapon. The impatient man is predictable. The predictable man is controllable. If people know you will respond immediately, they can steer you with pressure. If they know you can't tolerate discomfort, they can manufacture discomfort and watch you bargain with your dignity to make it stop. The nice man calls it keeping the peace. The strategist calls it paying tribute. So here is the fourth law. Never let someone else set your tempo. Tempo is power. Whoever controls the pace controls the frame, the emotion, the negotiation, the outcome. This is why kings did not rush to answer petitions. This is why generals did not chase after provocations. Not because they were slow, because they understood that speed is often obedience disguised as efficiency. Patience is not waiting helplessly. Patience is choosing the moment. When someone pushes you, your old instinct is to explain, justify, or repair. But if you respond at the moment they demand it, you've accepted their pressure as legitimate. Even if your words are firm, your timing betrays you. Instead, you let the pressure sit in the room like smoke. You breathe, you watch, you let their urgency reveal their motive. People reveal themselves when you don't soothe them. If their request was reasonable, time won't harm it. If their request was manipulation, time will expose it. This is how you stop being managed. A manipulator relies on your reflex to react. They create a crisis, a disappointment, an accusation, a sudden coldness, anything that makes you rush toward them. And when you rush, they learn the lever. So, you remove the lever. You do not respond instantly to emotional bait. You do not chase a withdrawing person. You do not argue inside someone else's manufactured urgency. You choose a simple practice. Delay by design, not as a game, as discipline. If you receive a disrespectful message, you don't answer while your blood is hot. You answer when your voice is level, or you don't answer at all. If someone tries to corner you in a conversation, you say, "I'll think about it," and you walk away. If someone demands a decision under pressure, you refuse the pressure itself, not under these conditions. That is what sovereignty looks like. And this is the part the nice man fears most. They may get angry. Let them. Anger is often the sound of lost control. When someone realizes you are no longer reactive, they will test harder. They will increase the drama, raise the stakes, imply consequences. This is the final tantrum of a system that used to work. Hold your posture, because when you don't move, the world recalibrates around you. People either adjust their behavior to match your standards, or they remove themselves. Both outcomes are victory. Patience makes you unreadable. Unreadable makes you difficult to manipulate. Difficult to manipulate becomes respected. Nice men try to correct disrespect with hints. They soften the message, smile through it, wrap it in humor, or delay it until it rots into resentment. They say, "It's fine," when it isn't. They forgive prematurely to prove they're mature. Then, months later, they explode over something small, and everyone acts shocked. Machiavelli would call this amateur warfare. If you allow small violations, you train people to attempt larger ones. Disrespect is not a single event, it is a negotiation. Every time you let it slide, you signal that the terms can be pushed. So the fifth law is simple. Strike once, cleanly, and early. Not with violence, with consequence. A clean strike is precise. It is not emotional, it is not a rant, it is not a performance designed to win sympathy. It's a short, controlled correction that ends the behavior or ends the access. Most men fail here because they think correction must be cruel to be effective, so they avoid it. Or they think correction must be kind to be moral, so they dilute it until it's meaningless. The strategist does neither. He is calm, and he is final. When someone crosses a line, you name the behavior without debate. Don't speak in fog. I feel like maybe you kind of speak in steel. Don't speak to me like that. Then stop. Silence after the line is part of the line. It forces the other person to face what they did instead of chasing your approval with more words. If they apologize, you accept it and move on. If they argue, minimize, mock, or escalate, you apply the consequence immediately, not later, not after another chance. Immediately, because delayed consequences are not consequences. They are threats you didn't believe in. A clean strike also means you don't overpunish. Overpunishment reveals insecurity. It tells the room you were storing anger. It turns you into a drama source. Your power comes from proportionality. The consequence matches the offense. Small disrespect, small correction. Repeated disrespect, removal. This is where nice men panic, because removal feels mean. They fear losing people. They fear being called rigid, sensitive, controlling. But what they're really afraid of is standing alone with their own decision. That's why they negotiate themselves out of their boundaries. They'd rather be drained than be judged. Machiavelli's reality is colder. Your reputation is shaped less by what you tolerate and more by what you stop. If you stop disrespect cleanly, early, and without emotion, you become a difficult target, not because you're aggressive, but because you are expensive to violate. People may not say it aloud, but they'll feel it. This man is not available for games. And here's the secret nice men miss. A clean strike improves relationships. It removes ambiguity. It forces honesty. It separates careless people from deliberate people. It stops you from building silent resentment that eventually poisons everything. A boundary enforced early is mercy compared to anger unleashed late. So learn this posture. A warm face, a cold spine. You can be generous and still be unmovable. You can be polite and still be dangerous to cross. Perception is a battlefield, and nice men walk onto it unarmed. They believe reality is what they are inside. They believe intentions radiate outward and will be recognized if they remain consistent. They believe being authentic is enough. Machiavelli would almost pity this, because in human systems, your inner character is not what rules you. Your perceived leverage rules you. People treat you according to what they believe you can do, what you can take, what you can replace, and what you can withstand. Nice men advertise the opposite of leverage without realizing it. They advertise availability. They advertise emotional hunger. They advertise that they will stay even when it costs them. They advertise that they want to be chosen more than they want to choose. And the world responds accordingly. So the sixth law is this: look like a man with options, not by bragging, not by peacocking, not by trying to look rich or loud or important. Those are the costumes of insecurity. Options are communicated through absence, selectivity, and calm detachment. A man with options does not chase. A man with options does not over-explain. A man with options is not easily offended, because he is not easily cornered. This is perception control. You shape the story the room tells itself about you. Start with the most powerful signal, what you tolerate. If you tolerate flaky behavior, you look replaceable. If you tolerate disrespect, you look hungry. If you tolerate one-sided dynamics, you look like you need the connection more than they do. Options begin when your standards become visible. Visible standards change everything. People stop treating you like a convenience and start treating you like a choice that must be maintained. The next signal is your availability. Nice men think constant availability is loyalty. It isn't. It's an announcement that your life is empty enough to be interrupted at will. You don't need to pretend you're busy. You need to be structured. Your time should have shape. Your phone should not be a leash. Your replies should not be proof of devotion. Reply when you decide, not when you're summoned. That one habit alone alters your aura. Then there is the signal of emotional posture. Nice men overreact to small shifts. A delayed message triggers panic. A colder tone triggers self-doubt. A minor conflict triggers apologies. This makes you readable, and readability makes you easy to manage. The man with options has a slower emotional pulse. He receives information without collapsing into interpretation. He watches patterns instead of chasing moments. He does not beg for reassurance because he has already chosen himself. And here is the most Machiavellian part. You don't need to convince anyone you have options. You only need to stop acting like you don't. Scarcity is felt more than it is stated. Quiet confidence is believed more than it is declared. When you walk away from what disrespects you, people assume you had somewhere better to go. When you say no without guilt, people assume your yes is valuable. When you are warm but not accessible to manipulation, people assume you have power. Perception doesn't require lies. It requires discipline. Kindness is not weakness. Uncontrolled kindness is weakness. The nice man's tragedy isn't that he cares. It's that he uses care as a bargaining chip. He gives to be chosen. He listens to be needed. He sacrifices to buy safety. And when the world doesn't repay him, he calls it cruelty, when the real problem is that he tried to purchase love with self-erasure. Machiavelli would tell you the final law with a surgeon's calm. Make your kindness conditional on character, not on your fear of being alone. This is the difference between a benevolent man and a useful man. A useful man is rewarded only as long as he is useful. The moment he costs something, the loyalty evaporates. A benevolent man is different. He can give, but he can also withhold. He can help, but he can also leave. He is not trapped in the role of provider, fixer, emotional sponge, or obedient ally. He chooses, and choice is the root of command. So, you end the era of the nice guy by building a private constitution, simple laws you never violate, no matter how charming the manipulator, no matter how pretty the request, no matter how sharp the guilt. 3 laws. First, never trade self-respect for connection. If you must shrink to keep someone, you have already lost them. And if you keep them anyway, you will spend your life paying interest on that debt. Second, never chase what withdraws. Withdrawal is either a boundary or a tactic. If it's a boundary, chasing is disrespect. If it's a tactic, chasing is obedience. In both cases, you lose. Let absence do its work. Let silence reveal intent. Let people show you what they are when they don't get instant access to your attention. Third, reward what you want repeated. This is the part that feels cold until you realize it's how every stable system operates. You give warmth to respect. You give access to reciprocity. You give loyalty to loyalty. And you remove yourself from games without announcing a moral crusade. You are not here to teach adults how to treat you. You are here to live in a way that makes mistreatment expensive. This is how you keep your humanity without becoming prey. You become calm enough to refuse, disciplined enough to wait, and serious enough to leave. You stop trying to be good in the eyes of people who profit from your softness. You stop confusing empathy with surrender. You stop pleading your case and start enforcing your standards. And something changes. Not the world. You. You walk into rooms and you are no longer negotiating for permission to exist. You are no longer apologizing for your needs. You are no longer volunteering to be last. You are kind when it is deserved, firm when it is required, and unmoved when someone tries to shame you back into your old cage. That is not cruelty. That is adulthood with teeth. Subscribe and like if you're ready to be respected without asking for it. Move in silence, choose your moments, and let your standards do the talking.